Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the HR Congress podcast. My name is Ben Churchhouse, and I'm joined today by Kevin Empey. Kevin is the founder of WorkMatters, a leadership and organization development consulting firm focused on organizational agility and supporting business leaders, HR leaders, and their employees as they prepare for the future of work. Kevin's a leader in the areas of people strategy and leadership development, and he's been in this domain for over 25 years. He was also a partner and director of Willis Towers Watson, where he led the firm's HR consulting business and their future of work practice in Ireland. With a background originally in IT and business development, he's a qualified executive coach, agile HR instructor, and has a master's in leadership and management practice. So thank you, Kevin, for joining me again at the HR Congress podcast, a returning guest of ours. We had a conversation last year about the same time, I believe. It's an honor to have you with me again and look forward to our conversation.
Thanks, Ben. Good to talk to you.
So you'll be presenting a pre-Congress workshop and a session at the HR Congress this November in Nice, coming up in just a couple of weeks. The pre-Congress workshop is on shaping the future fit organization, and the session is in the AI and digital track, which is entitled A Compelling Coalition, How HR and IT Are Together Driving Digital Transformation. So before we get to those sessions, I'd like to start off with just returning to the conversation we had last year. How have you been since the last HR Congress in Brussels? And you also spoke at the Digital HR Summit in Amsterdam in April. So how have you been since then? What's new in the world of Mr. Kevin Empey?
Yeah, no, great, Ben. Those two really good events last year, and I thought particularly the Digital HR conference in Amsterdam, was really bringing home, I guess, the realities of digital and digital transformation and what it all means for HR. And my business is going great. I mean, we're 2 years now in operation, and it's really sort of settled into a kind of consulting type operation and operating model, and then a lot of interest around training and development, and sort of enabling people to do some of this future of work readiness type stuff themselves. So, those two operating models have been developing nicely, and we're busy, thankfully.
So one of the things that we spoke almost exactly a year ago about was the impact that digital technologies are having on the work landscape. And we went into quite a lot of detail, in fact, after the podcast, and we talked for about an hour and a half, I believe, on a whole bunch of philosophical questions, which we won't cover now. But since the time that we spoke last year, what, if anything, has changed, whether in practice or in conversation, about the impact of digital technologies on work?
Yeah, it's a big question. I mean, the whole area of technology, as we know, is just pervasive, isn't it? Right through everything from the moment, and probably before you enter the workplace, up until well after you leave. And we talked about always on and everything else last year. But I feel that the whole digital, it has moved on a step. I think the conversation has moved on, and perhaps there's a better understanding now of what we're dealing with and what we're talking about when we talk about digital technology, digital transformation. I'm sure that people will say there's more levels than this, but there certainly seems to be two levels going on. One is around the digitizing, if you like, of the business. Not fundamentally changing the business model, but using available technology to improve what we're already doing. And that's kind of a technology-enabled exercise, enabled by change management, etc. And then I guess the more powerful piece of digital transformation, which is really something different again. I think that's really redefining what we're doing, as a business, and really disrupting the way we do work, the way our customers interact with the business, the way we're doing workflows. And ultimately, it's a cultural change and a mindset change. And I think we talked about that in Amsterdam about, being digital rather than doing digital, if you like. So one of the things I think that's changed is we're getting better at distinguishing those two areas. Are we just talking about digitizing the business and bringing in digital tools to enable us to do what we're doing anyway, or have been doing, and to make that more efficient and effective, maybe automating here and there, etc. Some people call it like random acts of digital, for instance. Is it that sort of level, or are we talking actually about using technology to fundamentally transform the business and bring real culture change and business change and customer interface, if you like, changes? So I think that's one thing that I noticed a lot more sort of, I guess, definition and clarity about what exactly we're doing. And of course, some of those things getting sometimes muddled up, but those two broad schools are now really moving on, I think, particularly in the HR area, about thinking about how we deal with those. How do we show up? How do we lead? What's our role? And, in terms of our structures and our capacity and even our confidence in dealing with either or both of those two areas of digital change, if you like, in organizations. So I think we're moving on, the conversation moving on, and we're getting more about from what it's about to how do we actually get on and lead and make this happen, and to really sort of future-proof our organizations, etc.
I think this is something that comes up in quite a lot of conversations around this area. It's really easy to fall into abstractions or distant projections when we're talking about the future of work, the future of technology in the workplace. How do you make, or how would you look at making this concept something real that's actually practically applicable to an organization? How do you go about dispelling some of this mystical aura that seems to be prevalent in the way that people talk about the future of work?
The scenario you're talking about really speaks to why we set up WorkMatters in the first place, was really to try to create that bridge between, I suppose, the hype and the noise and all the fuss about these things, and all the themes between robotics and AI and changing demographics, all the forces that we're told that are there regarding the changing world of work, the future of work, to try to create a bridge from all of that to our current reality. In other words, we've a business to run, we've pressures this quarter, this year. We are clearly looking to what we're building and changing to in the future, but how do all these forces and all these issues and all this hype and noise relate to us, today? And what is it that we can do today to future-proof the business, or to enable us to navigate what seems to be a very noisy kind of atmosphere around all this? So that's really what we're about, is trying to create that bridge for people and to try to translate, if you like, all this future of work stuff into 2 or 3 very kind of concrete or tangible areas of work, if you like, that if we work on those, and if we can improve our capacity and our abilities around these 2 or 3 areas, then we're going to be okay. We're going to be able to adapt and succeed, if you like, and thrive in the future of work, whatever that brings us. Because one of the things is we don't really know not everything about what's going on. Technology is changing at a great rate, but it's not just technology. There's other converging forces. So if we can get 2 or 3 fundamental things right, then we are, if you like, enabling ourselves to navigate and to twist and change and adapt and take the opportunities that are coming our way, not just deal with the challenges. I think one of those is the digital. I think this idea about understanding what that actually looks like and what that means for us, and how we can make the enabling technologies, help us pivot, if you like, from the business we are today to what we want to be tomorrow. I think agility is a core capability. We've talked about that a fair bit, but I think it is one of those. It's an area, it's a competency, if you like, a capability at organizational and individual level, that if we could solve for agility, if you like, we could be ready for whatever happens us in the future. So I think a lot of people, whether it's their current business challenges or their future challenges they're talking about, there's a lot of interest and a lot of work going on in the agility space. And then thirdly, I suppose, the continuous innovation and change, and just trying to build that into a culture and way of working. And finally, the talent area, really getting the right talent and looking after talent and thinking about the talent of the future. If we can get those 3 or 4 things right, Ben, it's my view anyway, then we've created a bridge, I think, between where we are today and how we're going to succeed in the future. So hopefully those things make the future of work more real and present, if you like, for people, so that they can actually do something about it today, if you like, rather than just, worrying about all this hype and everything that may or may not happen to them in their worlds.
In your session in the AI and digital track, you're going to be speaking on the topic of how HR and IT are together working to drive digital transformation. without going into all of the detail, obviously, for your session, why do HR and IT need to work closely together in this case?
Yeah, I touched on this a little bit in Amsterdam, and it was really, I've had the pleasure of working in both of those fields, the HR and the technology worlds, over my time, and I guess what I'm seeing is quite a change in how these functions, if you like, and capabilities work together and will work together. It's interesting, actually, when you look at IT and HR, they have similar mandates in the organization. They have similar roles. They're responsible for three basic things, but like running the business, having the right technology, but also the right talent to deliver the business today, to grow capacity for what we need to do into the future, next few years. Do we have the right technology capacity? Do we have the right talent? But also, thirdly, to transform the organization from where we are now and into the future, and to enable it to succeed and thrive in the next phase of the organization's existence. And I think so that's quite an important point, is that fundamentally they have similar kind of reasons for being there, if you like, to make the business successful. But I guess in their roles, you could argue, I guess it's quite simplistic, but that in the whole people, process, and technology, areas, they've been able to work relatively separately over the period of time. Technology comes in big change programs, and the people side, HR, take care of that, and and there's a change management exercise, and so on and so on. The cycle continues. But what digital, I guess, really does is it throws all that in the air, doesn't it? I mean, you're now talking about a fundamental disruption to ways of working and the way the customer is interacting with the business, meaning that the people agenda and the technology agenda are now one and the same. They're now mixed up together in a much more blended way than they were in the past. It's not like this linear type of functional silo type of existence. It's genuinely needing to work together, because everybody you talk to around digital transformation will say it's not about the technology, it's about the culture change, it's about the way of working, the way of thinking. So without both working together, we're simply not going to maximize or optimize the benefits of this technology. And I think technology has probably had a longer history in this transformation agenda. They've had to deal with running the organization while also transforming, because technology has been moving so fast. So I think now they're looking to HR to say, gosh, we're now running into all these people issues and culture issues and way of working issues. You need to help us to make this technology a success. So I just think there's a more of but by necessity, there's more of a coming together of the two functions in order to make this digital transformations, a success.
This might be a kind of a silly question, but in such a collaboration, who actually ends up ultimately leading the transformation, HR or IT?
It's a very, very, very good question. And I've been looking at this and trying to researching it and also talking to many, many people, and also observing digital transformations and technology changes. And you see different models, don't you? You see some models where the CIO, CTO is definitely leading in front. You see digital change directors being brought in. Sometimes that's worked, sometimes it hasn't. The CEO sometimes taking charge, particularly if it's a big business change. You rarely see HR, to be honest, in my experience, in terms of leading the digital transformation. And I suppose if that's the way it has been, the question is, where do we go in the future with this? And I guess one of the things we need to think about is what level. If we're just talking about digitizing the business, basic changes to technology, automating something here and there, a process, etc. Maybe the traditional IT-led change management approach will be okay with HR enabling and supporting that change. Maybe that's fine. But I think in real digital transformation, where we're talking at least as much of the challenges being people and cultural and leadership challenges, as well as the technology take on, if you like, or adoption, we simply have to have both leading and playing a leadership role. And I guess it's not a cop-out here question, but I guess you and I have talked about rugby, quite a lot. And it's often said that there isn't just one captain on the pitch. There's 2 or 3 or 4 even leaders on each successful team. whether it's the backs or the forwards or the midfielders. And you just get a sense that that's the way it's going to have to be for digital transformation, is that there's going to have to be a number of leaders who take on different roles. But I think the fantastic opportunity for HR, though, is this idea of the leading from behind, as it were, because I think HR is probably the one that can stand back and see the organizational and system-wide implication of the digital transformation. And they'll be able to see, have we got this change program set up correctly? Do we have the right talent in the right places? Do we have the right steering and governance? Is there a risk that this is going to be a technology-only play, and therefore it's going to blow up in our faces later on? So I think HR have a fantastic leadership role to play, but it may not be the one, necessary leader out in the front, if you like, on the white horse, as it were. It could be more this servant leader type idea in terms of making sure that all the places are in all the parts are in place. And indeed, the CEO is getting the right coaching along the way, because ultimately the CEO needs to be the one to really set the tone that this is not just technology, it's about culture change and business change, creating a vision for the future. So do you get what I mean? I just think it's a leadership role, but maybe not a traditional authority-based leadership role, and more of a facilitative leadership role, servant-based, etc. And I think that's a very interesting challenge and role for HR.
So what are some of the attributes of personal agility, or that contribute to personal agility, which are going to be important for the workers of the workplaces of tomorrow?
I'm so glad you bring that up, because I think, we've been talking quite a lot about the organization level and the leadership role and things like that. But ultimately, our organizations we need to bring this down to personal level as to how we can help and equip our workforces, individuals, to help them thrive, to help them not just cope, if you like, and lurch from one weekend to the next, but actually, to actually thrive and to actually grow, in such a fast-paced kind of changing world of work that we've been kind of talking about, to take on all this technology. And that's why I came up with this personal agility approach or model, just to try and capture what those skills might be. If there was a set of skills that individuals were more self-aware about, and they were more deliberate about, if you like, in their own development and in their own kind of work, then perhaps they could be better equipped to deal with whatever is thrown at them, in the future of work, with things changing so fast. So we worked on the personal agility model through 2 years basically of research and working with organizations on this in our programs, and certainly no surprises really. I think that's the one thing you'd say. But what it is a packaging up, I guess, of those kind of future fit skills. And really one of the main ones is this openness to learning. That whole learning mindset, the whole Carol Dweck growth mindset orientation, really an openness to change and openness to learning. And secondly, that changeability, that attitude to change, that it's something that we may not welcome it, because I don't know of how wired we are as humans to really thrive and want to change every day, but at least we're open to change, and we have the ability and the resilience to change, and we can see the benefit of it. We can understand that actually this is a growth opportunity, not just a threat, if you like. So that change orientation and learning mindset, and the whole area then of collaboration and networking and team orientation, those are always come out so strong whenever you talk to people about examples of what personal agility looks like. But one of the more surprising ones was perhaps this whole area of purpose. In other words, an individual being purposeful about what they're at, being tuned into what's important to them and their own values, etc., and what they want to do and where they want to go. Because it was very evident from the examples we researched, was that folks who had that, it was like they had a keel or a rudder or something in their own boat, if you like, where they were able to keep steady, on their feet while all this change was happening around them, and then they were more open to learning, more open to change. So they're just some of the attributes, and we've put them together into a bit of a model just to help, I suppose, bring them to front of mind, if you like, both for HR in selecting and thinking about people, and how future fit they are and how able they are for roles in the future. Thinking about it for the recruitment, etc. Thinking about revisiting their competency models, if you like, for recruiting folks. But most importantly, for people themselves to be able to say, "Gosh, how good am I at these? Do I have a blind spot in this? 4 or 5 skills, or am I good?" So that was the purpose of that, to try to bring all of this changing world of work down to the individual level.
Given what you've just said, how can HR professionals play their role? And this is kind of a multi-point question, so I'll just say it all in one and we'll go through it. How do they find the right talent, onboard/train the right talent, and let the talent do their thing to obviously the betterment of the organization? Given that we've just talked about attributes of personal agility and resilience, what should HR professionals know about the oncoming changes?
Yeah, we spent quite a bit of time working with people about saying, look, maybe some of these changes haven't come down the track. Maybe the businesses haven't quite moved on to their new digital model, etc. Maybe they're still have one foot very, very much in the present. But what can HR do today? And we've talked a little bit about the role of HR seeing itself maybe more as a leader in some of these areas rather than a follower when it comes to things like digital transformation, etc. But when it comes to talent, one of the things we talk to folks about is that actually they can change very quickly. If they have a sense of the skills that will really help their organization succeed in the future, and also the leadership skills and qualities that are needed to create a more empowered, a more innovative, and more constantly changing environment, then we can start to recruit for those skills and also promote people into positions where they are going to be able to create the right environment, the right innovative, climate, etc., for their people to thrive. And it's likely that some of the competencies and success criteria they have employed in the past may not be the same skills that they need to recruit and promote for in the future. So that's a very basic thing, and it's a very easy thing to think about and to tweak, if you like, and to change. So getting people out of the right people on the bus, no matter what leader you talk to, if we can get the right people with the right attitude on the bus, then we can help them grow and change. I think the other thing too leaders can do, HR can do in helping people is to rethink their roles. So individuals, you're coming in to do a role, and here's your job description. And I think we're still in that space a little bit. Whereas what you hear from people who are more in this kind of future of workspace is they say, well, look, yes, those are tasks we really need you to do now, but actually we want you to own your own kind of destiny here, your own role, and we want you to think about not just delivering on those tasks, we want you to figure out how it is that you want to contribute to your team and to the organization. What kind of innovation would you like to get involved in this organization outside your core competency, your core area? And what is it that you want to see yourself grow into in the future? What areas would you like to work in, etc.? So they're actually provoking that open learning mindset from people after they come in to say, this is this is a two-way street here. This is something we want to create an environment for you to grow. And then taking stuff out of their way. So when we talk to folks about HR and HR agility, some of it is actually just taking away blockers of agility and mobility. So, if we look right through all our HR processes and practices, where is there opportunity to loosen up, if you like, some of those restraints and constraints in our policies to allow people to grow and to develop and to try new things with different people across the organization. So the whole agility, and I do stress the difference between the two, but the idea of agility coming into the HR way of doing things is really important, I think, to allow this talent to be able to breathe, if you like, and to grow. So they're just a couple of thoughts, I think, on what HR can do, if you like, tomorrow. That doesn't have to be the end result of some big program. That's a change of mindset and change of approach that we could employ straight away.
So to follow on from that point, obviously you're going to be presenting a workshop and a session which are related to some of these topics that I've just been talking about. What can you tell our listeners about those workshops workshop and session that you're going to be presenting at the HR Congress this year?
Yeah, I think it's on the 18th. Is it Monday before the conference? I think it's the pre-conference workshops. And
yes, correct.
And the one I'm doing really on that is taking people through a mini version of a program we do with people, business leaders and HR teams here, and it's about sort of future-proofing their organization. So it's a reimagining or imagining what their organization as a future would look like. So take your organizational model and kind of move on, 2-3 years beyond, 5-6 years, and what would it look like if you took away the constraints, if you like, of the current business and the current year and all the rest of it? What would that look like? And how would these future of work forces that you mentioned, all these things like robotics and AI and demographics, etc., if you take those main forces that are at play, what do they actually mean for you in reality? So what challenges and opportunities do they create? And then working back from that and saying, okay, well, we now have a sense of some kind of a visual of what the organization of the future might look like for us, what business model we might be in, what sectors we might be in, how these forces are going to impact on us. And then the next step is, well, what can we do about that then? So what would be some of the HR and organizational changes and tweaks that we could make, not immediately, but over time, in order to position ourselves so that as these realities start to come and other realities start to come into view, then we are positioned. We are already positioned and able to deal with those and to react with those. So it's about an immersion exercise really in the future of work to understand what does that practically look like and to come out with a bit of an action plan at the end of it. The session on the digital track is more really exploring this whole area of the digital transformation and this emerging role between the technology and the HR, and what HR's leadership role actually looks like and can look like, and some just examples and thoughts on that to help people rethink perhaps how they are engaging with their technology colleagues and how they are helping to lead on digital transformation more generally.
Cool. So how can people get in contact with you if they want to reach out after listening to the podcast or maybe with you on site in Nice?
No problem. The website, WorkMatters, one word, workmatters.ie, and kevin.empey@workmatters.ie is the email. So feel free to make contact and hopefully see people in Nice pretty shortly soon. Isn't that right? 2 weeks to go.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's scary, right? There's a lot of work to go. Everything's under control though, so don't worry. We're all good. We're just putting the final touches on everything. So on the record, final question. I need a prediction from you for the Rugby World Cup final this weekend.
Oh dear. Heart says South Africa, head says England, Ben. I'm afraid, that's how I see it. But yeah. I've been wrong before many times, so don't.
Yeah. I've got England by about 10 points. I think it's going to be closer than the New Zealand game. As a New Zealander, that hurts to say, but but I think England's going to get there.